Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
This week we're going to be talking about genetics and, well, as usual, we've brought in a story each.
We have.
I don't know if we've got kind of new stories or just stories that are kind of relevant.
Mine's fairly new. Mine's this week.
Mine's... I don't actually know how long ago mine was. I can verify this before I start talking about it, but I'm fairly sure it's quite recent.
Okay, because mine's like ongoing.
Oh, okay.
New. Well, I mean,
mine's kind of an ongoing story as well.
I feel like everything genetics at the moment is kind of ongoing,
yes,
to be fair.
Yeah,
exactly. And then we'll also have the quiz at the end, as per, which
I'm
do
keeping
not know about.
my shame.
Your shame bell.
Not
You're
the
going to keep your
feeling
shame.
of
Yeah,
shame.
I don't want
Your
your
buzzer.
shame.
But my buzzer sound.
Your buzzer.
Which is just the nun from Game of Thrones screaming shame and ringing her bell.
It is a shame bell.
It's great.
I am feeling a little bit shameful today, only because
some
people may know that we unfortunately did not win the pub quiz that we do every week before the show.
It's because I wasn't there.
It's because it wasn't there.
It's probably that, actually.
I'm your lucky chap. To be honest, I just carry that team. I lie, I really don't.
Okay,
I don't know
next
anything.
week, you go on your own next week. You can do it. If you carry us, then just do it on your own. We'll see who wins.
But I need you for all of the rounds. No, I lie. I occasionally come up with a very niche answer. Like, if it's to do with, like, pro wrestling or reading...
No idea.
Or obscure hardcore music, then I might have stuff that I can contribute. But other than that, I just take a wild stab.
You lost.
Yes.
Other than that, you lost.
Yes.
Shall we start?
Yes.
So
genes, everyone has them.
Yeah, that's what people have. Yeah, I'm going to start, because...
You go.
That's you've kind of ruined what I'm starting with. I'm going to talk to you about personalised medicine. Either of you heard of personalised medicine?
Yes, because that's kind of what I did my dissertation project about at undergrad.
How about you, Megan?
No, so I'm going to be a bit of a
Oh my word! Well, that's good. I actually thought you both know this. So, personalised medicine basically involves tailoring your healthcare depending on your specific genetic makeup, and obviously everyone is individual, so you've all got your own individual genes. Your DNA is different. And therefore, each drug will react differently to you, and you'll react differently to each drug, which is quite, different. Obviously, drugs are normally just given to you, and you just kind of take them in, and everyone gets the same, and it goes through you.
But actually, it's different for every person?
It is different for every person. The things that are different are, things like drug removal from your body, so how long it stays in your blood or wherever it's targeted. Things like how many receptors are available, what receptors are available, all these different things really, really affect the kind of the efficacy of the drug. And it matters having kind of a difference here, because it can really kind of skew how well or badly a drug can affect you. So you can have really good drugs.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I did one of these things recently called 23andMe, where you get your genome analysed, and it tells you everything about you. And one of the things it tells you is your reaction to loads of different drugs. And by now, I probably would know if I was allergic to some drugs, like if I had some, penicillin I was allergic to, I probably would have known by now. But some things you don't know how you'd react to, because you might never have taken them before. And because there's all these different genes that are associated with different medications, and you might react differently to different things. So personalised medicine... How wide-ranging is this? How often does this happen? Well,
it's new. It's not really kind of mainstream yet. It does happen occasionally, but it's very expensive currently. In the same way that 23andMe is expensive. So with 23andMe, you just give it a saliva sample. You put it in a little tube, you send it off, and they'll analyse it, and they tell you the susceptibility to a load of genetic kind of diseases. They also tell you kind of irregularities that you may have. So this is stuff like your susceptibility to... diabetes and things like that. Also, weird things like if you're going to be affected by caffeine more than some other people. And also, my favourite thing about this, that 23andMe specifically can tell you, I don't know about others, is it can tell you if you're the sort of person that doesn't like hearing people chew.
Yeah,
that's my younger sister. That is my younger sister down to a T.
Yeah, it's just genetics.
Oh, and I've just been telling her off for it. I'm just you should stop preaching at people about the way they eat.
Wow.
Because, so the phobia of chewing, so the hatred of people chewing is a genetic trait, and one of the things 23andMe tells you is whether or not you have misophonia. And the other thing that I will find out is earwax type. And I'm just sort of like,
Oh, that's interesting
weird
though,
things.
because like depending on the type of earwax you have, like it depends on whether or not you get sweaty. It's really weird. My friend is half Japanese, half Italian, and her mum has like the type of earwax that you have, which also means that you don't sweat the same way as everyone else does, or that your sweat doesn't smell. It's really, really weird.
Ooh, sweat doesn't smell. That's pretty good.
Interesting.
I mean,
Like, I bet her mum loves it, but her mum
It make you
doesn't
less
have-
self-conscious at the gym.
well, you still
definitely.
sweat, but you just
yeah,
don't smell,
you just wouldn't.
Less self-conscious after the gym then.
Like
Walking
if
through the
there's
street.
if there's ever going to be like genetic enhancements, I'd probably go for that sort of thing first.
Yeah.
It's quite a basic level, but kind of
If we're
huge
going to go
effect.
for genetic enhancements, I'd probably go with, I don't know, like regeneration.
Nah, it's all about the sweat
No.
smell.
Or
It's
lack
all-
thereof.
Lack thereof, yeah.
Lack thereof.
Another issue with kind of genetic testing and basically personalised medicine is we don't really have many data sets for other ethnicities. So the data sets usually for big drugs and big pharma are all taken from Caucasians. A lot of the testing's done in Europe and America, and there's very little kind of done in places like China. So recently they've started moving towards this again, and the Han Chinese individuals, like, they're trying to push that kind of area in drug development. So carbamazepine, which I can never say, carbamazepine, yeah.
Mesopene sounds about right.
I think it's...
Well, we always
mazepine?
butcher.
I know, we
pronouncements
butcher
on the
words,
show,
but this
so-
one, like, yeah. Recently they've done a new trial in China to just,
Ooh.
like, try and level everything up again,
Yeah.
which is a step in the right direction. And, yeah, the more we learn about this sort of thing, the better, like, prepared we are, both therapeutically and preventatively. So with 23andMe, it's very preventative. It's kind of like knowing you're going to be in a car crash. Not knowing when, but knowing you're going to be, sort of thing, for
Or
Alzheimer's.
potentially will be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just risk.
Yeah.
It tells you if you have the BRCA1 gene, it does not BRCA2 gene. It doesn't mean you're going to get breast cancer. It just means you're at a higher risk of getting
Yeah.
it. And I think it's quite a good thing for, at least in my case, like if I find out I do, is I would want to know, just because you would get screened more.
And that's where it gets interesting, though, because there are some diseases, like Huntington's, where you either have a 100% chance of getting it, and that's it, and there's no cure, or you're just not going to get it. And that is obviously hereditary. But what's really interesting is I've just finished reading Genome by Matt Ridley, even. Just
You always
lost
said Matt Riddlin.
Riddlin.
It
Matt
goes through
Ridley.
every single chromosome and what's on it, doesn't it?
It's really it's strange because the idea is to tell a story of human development and the genome, and he wrote it whilst the Human Genome Project was going on. So it was still ongoing, and if you look back through it, there were a lot of discoveries that he alludes to which have since been made, which is really awesome. But what was really interesting is he was talking about genetic testing and about whether or not people should do it, because in cases like Huntington's, would you want to know if you are going to have an incurable disease that will have an onset of about like 35 to 50 and will just be progressively degenerative? But also, you clearly want to know, Megan, about your genes.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably want to know either way.
No, I can get with the whole 100% chance or 0%
Yeah.
chance. It's like, oh, that's something that will happen in the future, and that's
Yeah.
quite scary. But with risks, I think I'd want to know, just so I could like look out for it just in case. And
Yeah.
in the case of breast cancer, it means you can catch it early if you look for it, potentially. But I'm very
It's
excited.
good. I mean, the one worry I'd have is your kind of genetic data being on a record somewhere and stored, because if someone could take that information...
Clone me!
Well, I was more thinking kind of direct weapons towards a certain group of people.
Okay.
That's why I'm worried. I'm not worried someone
would
cloning
design
me.
a biological agent to
Yeah,
kill me.
exactly, but you could, because you could tailor it specifically to kill off certain, like, people, which is...
Probably the future of chemical warfare, if we're
exactly.
being honest.
That's what I mean. It's biological, chemical warfare combined. Genetic warfare.
That being
Genetic
said, I
warfare.
do get given my base code, as in my entire genome sequence. I think I get all the base code at the very end of it if I want it, so that I might send it to my friends who are doing lab work and they can sequence my genome all for themselves and clone me all by themselves.
That would take a lot of work, though.
Yeah.
It would take a lot of bioinformaticians giving up their time to...
I
To
don't
help
see
you
why.
out.
We're
I
not saying you're not
wouldn't
worth
want to do
it, but
Yeah.
no one's got that time.
Nah, but I can just stick it in a blast sequence online. And it
Yeah.
tells me
Yeah,
what
that's
I'm
good. It's good fun doing that. It's good
Oh,
fun.
blast sequences.
Yeah, I don't miss
Takes me
it.
back to my undergrad days.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
So I've got my story here, which some might have read about in the news already, but it's about Neanderthals.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's about Neanderthals and how they still control our genes, which is a little bit out of context, and it sounds a little bit weird and voodoo. But for people who don't really know about Neanderthals, they've been extinct for 40,000 years. I was about to say million years, and that was going to be very wrong. But before they went and kicked the bucket, they actually mated with our ancestors, so they had a bit of fun beforehand, which means that there's a lot of people who still have Neanderthal genes. For example, in Eurasian populations, there's roughly between 1 to 4% of genes from Neanderthals, and up to 20% of Neanderthal genomes are still present in some human populations, which I think is super cool. So next time you insult someone saying, oh, you're a Neanderthal, just remember, so are you, to some extent.
Unless you're of African descent, in which case you're not likely to have Neanderthal genes at all, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
That's all right. The thing is it's interesting to see how like different populations like vary in their genomes and Neanderthal DNA. But the recent news to do with Neanderthals was in 2008, for example, they sequenced the genome at the University of Washington, and since then they've done a lot of research using the sequenced genome on the way that Neanderthal DNA differs from ours, and also how it still influences our own DNA, because we still have some of theirs in our own DNA. So the recent findings and the recent study they did was that they found that Neanderthal genes, if some people have certain genes, may protect people from developing schizophrenia, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it also happens to be the same gene, it's called Adam TSL3, which is the one that if you have a Neanderthal version of the gene, you're less likely to get schizophrenia. But it also is associated with making you taller. So not only do Neanderthals reduce your risk of getting schizophrenia, it's also making you really tall and cool. Not to say being short isn't cool, but you know.
But yeah. No, what's really interesting is, I'm just going to harp on about this book that I've just finished reading again, but there's actually links between like various genes that stop you from being predisposed to certain diseases. So for example, people who are from like African regions are less likely to contract malaria that will kill them, but it also means that in a way to compensate for that, they're likely to have sickle cell anemia. So if you're a carrier of sickle cell anemia, you won't die from malaria or catch it, but then you might pass that on to your children. And if you have like sort of genes from both your parents for sickle cell anemia, you have a pretty debilitating condition. God, I can't speak today. But it was really interesting because he had a look at several examples of things where you were like, I think in Asia, in India sort of particularly, people who were less likely to be affected by cholera bacteria were predisposed to things like heart disease, which is like, and it's one of those things where the genes that differ between populations and ethnicities like that might also explain why certain populations are more susceptible to various diseases than others, because there seems to be like a sort of a balancing act between genes where if you're protected from one thing, there tends to be a downside as well. So that'd be quite interesting to see if Neanderthal DNA does that. Yeah, I remember learning
about the sickle cell stuff, and it's like...
Yeah, it's like a case study that we all do.
Yeah, everyone's doing when you just like anything biology related. Because if you have sickle cell anemia, you don't get malaria, as far as I remember. Which, to be fair, malaria is the biggest killer.
It
Am
is,
I right
yes.
saying? Yeah, biggest killer in the world. So, you know, you're hedging your bets there. But then again, sickle cell anemia, you're also quite limited by that as well. But there are other good things to do with Neanderthal DNA, by the way, guys. Not to take the tone down a bit. For example, Neanderthal DNA increases blood clotting. However, this isn't all great because it was good back in the days when we crossbred. But because, you know, we were living in really dangerous, unpredictable environments where injuries were really common. So if your blood clotted really fast, you were less likely to maybe bleed out and die. But to be fair, nowadays we're living in an environment where that's less of an issue, and it's actually just increasing our risk of getting strokes. So not all great news there. And also there's supposedly increased risk of getting depression and nicotine addiction with Neanderthal DNA, but only by like 2% more, which I don't feel like is very significant at all. But
you don't know. I mean, like 2% could be a big difference if it was, say, starting off at 0.0001% and it goes up 2%. It could be huge.
That is a big difference, to be fair, yeah.
You never know.
But either way, Neanderthals have helped us out in many ways, as well as, you know, not helped us out in other ways. But and finally, the other thing that they found was that Neanderthals were the reason that we managed to take over the world to some extent, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing.
What does that mean? What do you mean
So, what I mean by this is there's something called human leukocyte antigens, which are an integral part of your immune system.
I know about these.
Oh, do you know?
Yeah, same.
Spoilers.
Second year immunology.
Spoilers. Immunology.
And they take up about 200 genes, and basically they're vital for our immune systems to work. And they're also hugely variable across the human population. So when we bred with Neanderthals, they gave us some of their HLA genes, which were more suited to local diseases and helped protect our migrating ancestors from diseases they hadn't actually come in contact with yet. So it gave them a bit of immunity because they got it from the Neanderthals, and it helped us take over the world. So thank you, Neanderthals.
I mean,
Well,
I'm going to thank them as well.
yeah. Thank you to the Neanderthals out there.
They haven't done that much for me, but
Yeah. But hey. Well, there's every chance that my ancestors didn't mate with Neanderthals, but mated with other Homo
Denisovans. Or
Denisovans, I think
yeah.
is the name of that sort of
Denisovans.
precursor to the humans today. But having said that, when you were talking about HLA antigens and stuff like that, my flatmate from last year did a genetics degree at undergrad, and he was offered a really interesting PhD project, which he ended up turning down for something that was more interesting.
Who turns down a PhD project?
Oh, he had several people coming to him being like, "Do you fancy doing a PhD with me?" And I was just like, "Goals."
goals.
Goals. But he was offered a PhD project which was looking at whether or not people were attracted to each other because they had different kinds of HLA proteins. So this idea that you're attracted to someone because
With the opposite
they
immune
have
system.
different immune systems, and so therefore,
You'd have a better one compromised together. Not compromised.
yeah,
Like,
but
brought
and your
together.
kids would be
Yeah.
immune to a lot more.
I remember
thought
hearing
that was
about
very
that. So yeah, the idea is two people with opposite immune systems mate, and then their kids have a better chance of surviving because
Yeah.
they might have both the genes of.
But they were
both
looking at
genes.
maybe seeing if they could quantify that. I'm not sure how, but he did his undergrad dissertation project as a precursor to that PhD, and then ended up taking something else entirely, which is very data heavy, and which I'm not really
Ooh,
sure I know what
data.
it's about.
I like
To
data.
be honest. But he's getting published in PLOS soon, so fingers
That's
crossed.
very impressive.
Fingers crossed. Shout out, Jimmy. Love you.
So yeah, that's all I have to say on Neanderthals.
Is it?
Mm.
Well, I like
Other than
that.
They're quite cool. I
I
know
thought
that there was also some crossbreeding with
Denisovans.
Denisovans. And they also gave us some beneficial things, but
But we
I
can't
can't
really
tell you what
tell because we've only found tiny little pieces of them in
we found
Siberia.
a finger.
Yeah, end of a finger and a tooth.
Yeah, which isn't
Not
much to
much.
go off.
Yeah, there's so little of them. I mean, we've talked about them before, I think, when a while back.
Yeah, I think we did mention them.
But there's so little known about them. Yeah, there we go. They've got a single bit of finger and a single molar tooth.
That's not even a bit of finger. That's
Yeah, no,
the
there's a
size
picture of
a
this.
fingernail. That's
Yeah,
that's
side
a
note,
knucklebone.
Megan and Paddy
Yeah.
are looking at Google and I can't see it,
It's
I'm
it's
assuming
a
it's a-
finger bone, like that knuckle bit.
Oh,
there.
that is
A
a
single.
very
knuckle.
tiny
and yet
little
using
middle
that,
knuckle.
we have been able to extract DNA and figure out a bit about them.
Well, that actual finger bone doesn't exist anymore because we destroyed that to get the DNA out. The only thing that exists now is the tooth,
Oh wow!
Wow.
which is I mean, I don't know if that's right. Surely there's other ways, but
Well,
not yet
I think
discovered.
if they'd found more, we would have heard of it. Yes, genetics, not awesome punk knowledge. This is why I'm good for pub quizzes, though. I know random stuff like that.
Yeah, don't drill it in.
But, alas. Right, what I've got is something about CRISPR-Cas9, which is a piece of gene editing technology which is all over the news, and it probably will be for a few years yet. I think we mentioned it last week.
With the mammofants.
With the mammothants.
The
And
mammoth.
me and Paddy were describing it as a tiny little, tiny little genetic scissors, but we were both making little scissor motions with our fingers as well. Just like
Are we doing it
tiny
again?
little
Yeah.
scissors,
All right,
yeah.
cool.
We're doing it again. You guys can't see this, which is sad, but
I'll try and upload a photo of you. I'll just whenever you do it again, I'll just be like, quick, snap a picture and put it up on there.
But yes, that's what my story is about. So what's really interesting is there are two teams that claim to have created this technology, which is now being used for various kinds of genetic therapy. for people who have everything from like cancer to just sort of like, I think at the moment someone's trying to figure out how to treat like this severe immune disease that only affects
Have I
just
gone
a
crazy
tiny.
and said like cystic fibrosis is also?
Yeah, no, that's also a possible
Well, it's
target.
single gene, isn't it? So if
Yes.
it's single gene, it's a lot easier than multiple genes.
It's a
Yes.
single
basically.
base pair. It's a
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
it depends on like what deletion it is or what mutation it is for cystic fibrosis, because there's a lot. But I digress. So what's really interesting is there were two teams in the United States that claim to have sort of come up with the technology that we now use for CRISPR-Cas9, and both have tried to patent it. And this week there has been a development in that case.
Ooh.
So basically, it's a team at, I think it's. Let me just double check this so I've got the right name.
Oh.
Right, the Broad Institute of Harvard and MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, wanted to patent it, and also the University of California, Berkeley. So this week it was ruled that the Broad Institute of Harvard and MIT could keep their patents in eukaryotic, which is sort of like anything that isn't bacteria, cells, and that includes in humans as well. And UC Berkeley sort of haven't won out yet, but there's plenty of room for appeal. So they're willing to take this further, and it looks like a court case that's going to drag out for a while. But what's quite interesting is there have been a lot of think pieces about it, because this is genetic engineering technology that has already been applied to things like basic cancer research, and of course there's a Chinese team in, I think it was like,
You're trying to...
I'm going to say Beijing, just outside of Beijing. I could be wrong though, so don't take that as gospel, who weren't published in either Nature or Science for the work that they did using CRISPR-Cas9, but came under a lot of fire because they tried to correct a blood disorder in embryos, and it was considered quite unethical by major science journals. But there's been a lot of reports of Chinese scientists continuing research in that line and using CRISPR-Cas9 and other sort of gene editing technologies
I was going to
on
say,
embryos.
surely patents... So this is in the US. The patents,
Yes.
they don't cross over worldwide, do they? I'm pretty sure there's like European legislation, American legislation, probably Chinese legislation. They probably don't have patents in Europe or China yet, do
Yeah,
they?
but what's interesting and why it's so important is that within sort of the area in which this legislation does count, it would be difficult for industry, for example, or for other universities to get their hands on that technology and to research it further. So it's a question of, with it being such an important gene editing tool, is it okay for one group to own the patents and make money off it, or is it more important for the public, who obviously have funded the research in the universities, sort of create this to begin with, to make sure that it's used for good,
Yeah, it's available
and
to
used
everyone.
widely so it can be researched properly, because there have been instances before where technology has been patented and that has stalled research across the field.
Similar to how drugs are patented and prices are hiked up until that goes off patent, and then they're just so easily available and cheap that
That
Yes.
happened to HIV drugs, didn't
Mhm.
it? That's the big
There's a
drama.
huge
That's
drama
the
about
guy.
the evil man.
The guy who everyone wants to punch in the face.
Well, actually, I have some news on that. Not to do with your topic, but it's just a little bit of tidbit about HIV. Recently, I was reading about the fact that 5 patients have been cleared of the virus because of a combination of 2 HIV vaccines and a cancer treatment, and they were cleared for between 6 to 28 months, and one person hasn't had to take his HIV medication for 7 months. 6 to 28 weeks, and one person hasn't had to take it for 7 months. So essentially they're helping to treat HIV in a way that they don't have to be taking these pills every day and have all these horrible side effects as well. So there's a bit of good news, everyone. We're successfully vaccinating HIV to some extent, nearly.
Yay!
It's good news. I mean, if anyone wants to know the man that we don't like, his name is Martin Shkreli. Or
I think Shkreli.
Yeah, even. He hiked the price up by 5,000%.
Yes. What was really interesting though, there was a team of I think they weren't undergrads. They were what we'd call college students, but I'm not sure they call them that in Australia. They were doing an experiment to see whether or not they could recreate the drug in question in like tiny quantities in a college lab, and realised that they could do it for a fraction of the price that he was charging. I mean, obviously they don't have any sort of like pharmaco production line going on, but it was quite interesting to see that it's definitely possible to make that drug for tiny amounts of money. Tiny amounts. And it did draw more attention to the fact that he's just a money-grabbing insert plethora of swear words.
You've got 21 minutes. You can't say anything.
Can't
21
swear on
minutes.
radio.
Yeah. What a shame, because he deserves it.
He does. He does. But yeah, it's an interesting debate that's now cropping up about whether or not we should allow scientists to patent something that is so beneficial if it were sort of more open. And apparently there's a piece of legislation. I'm going to double check what it's called because I can't remember it off the top of my head.
We're going to fill in now by just saying...
on another note, because of the HIV, I was just being told about Bill Gates. He's doing some great work with HIV at the moment, and he's investing loads of money into something called the pump of some extent. And it's a bit like, you know, with contraception you have the pill, and then you have things like the coil where you don't have to be taking the pill every day. So the pump is like the coil is to the pill, as my friend explained it. So you can like get your but HIV medication every day. Bit different medication every day without having to take a pill. So that's quite cool. That's good old Bill Gates there.
That is awesome. Yes, right. Okay, I find the name of this act. There's basically an act in the US called the Bayh-Dole Act, and it's a 1980 law, and it's used to petition the government. And it was developed to allow universities to license and patent anything that was invented using public funds. But you can also, like, basically, although you're allowing universities to take control of their own work, and they can use their inventions to make, so to sort of take that work and put it into the hands of the public. That's not always necessarily the case with universities basically using that for their own gain, especially when it comes to products like CRISPR, because it generates so much media attention and so much more funding and all the rest of it. They're reluctant to take away their own control. But what's interesting is, although Berkeley and the Broad Institute both have like unique licenses for human therapies using CRISPR, it's possible for people to start petitioning both of these institutions to let go a little bit. Like plenty of people have done things like that before. Paddy is miming "Let It Go." Let it go.
I'm actually really disappointed in myself for doing that.
I thought you said no Disney on this radio show.
There's no Disney.
I got a message just before we started being like, "No, we're not doing Disney. It's only a rock show." And I was like, "Oh."
But
it's rock only.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, Megan.
There's a point it's called rocket science, just off topic, and kind of on topic in the grander sense.
Don't really talk about rockets very much though, do we?
Hey, have you not heard our intro? There's definitely
that's true.
a blast off in that. So there we go. Again. You were saying Ikra, or were you?
Yes. You finished?
You were.
What do you guys think? Should it be public?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, if it's public, it means people can research it, people can do more research on it, people can make bigger discoveries and bigger breakthroughs, and it can help people with life-threatening genetic diseases.
Yeah.
And if it's not available to anyone to do that, then that's bad. That's my opinion.
I'm agreeing with that. I mean, there are some other great things that aren't patented. Do you want to hear some? I've just
go on. The World Wide Web being one of them.
Doorknobs.
What?
Doorknobs are not patented.
Not patented. Patented. Yeah, they're not patented.
Of course.
But I mean, they've been around ages. They were first patented, and then they were taken off because, for obvious reasons, imagine trying to get through a door without having to pay for like a patent on it.
So there you go, guys. A life without CRISPR would be a life without doorknobs.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's very true.
More or less.
Am I reading more of these teddy bears? Life without teddy bears. Life without plastic bags. I mean, actually, life without plastic bag would be pretty good. It wouldn't
for the planet.
Yeah,
anyway,
for the planet. But either way, teddy bears. They never did any harm.
It'd be great for me as well, because then I wouldn't get people being like 5p for a plastic bag, and you'd be like, yes, that is the law now. I have the law backing me up.
It's a shame, and not a shame at the same time. I don't know how I feel about the plastic bag thing. I think
it's good for the environment.
It is.
Yeah.
But everyone still buys them, like, at the same rate, I'm pretty sure.
Not at the same rate, no.
They're not? Ooh.
Definitely not. It makes my mum really
Usage
happy because she
definitely
always
gone
used to
down.
hoard plastic bags in the back of the car and they were never used. But now she finally has a use for them.
That's brilliant. Going back to the whole patent thing, I think it's really interesting because in science you have, like, it's the two sides to the same coin kind of deal, where either you patent something and you make money off it, but other people think you're money grabbing and you're just doing it for yourself and all the rest of it. But then on the flip side, Marie Curie didn't patent a lot of her findings, and towards the end of it she was having to raise money to pay for enough curium to continue doing her experiments, and I think there was something fundamentally wrong about that. So it's a question of the two extremes, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I love it. That was
Right,
good.
well.
I'm glad how that came about. Well done. Just you deserve.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
So, this is the best part. I mean,
This is everyone's favourite part.
everyone's
Oh
favourite
no,
part.
I've just realised something, guys.
I've
My
realised
phone
it
is
as well.
dead. My
Yeah,
phone
you're
is dead,
good.
so I don't have a buzzer.
You're going to have to say buzz.
I don't want to say
You
buzz.
have to say buzz.
No, that's like the penalty.
Not the
Or
penalty
like
for
we're
it.
gonna quickly get you a buzzer.
Nah,
Okay.
too late. We're going to start because we haven't got much longer of the show.
Okay.
Right, I'm going to find myself a buzzer. Bear
Alright,
with.
in the
Okay. You better be quick.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
That'll do.
Right.
That'll do.
It's
Yeah.
less funny.
It's awful. That's what. Right. Go
I
on.
missed my
Right,
name.
so this is the point in the show where I have a quiz about science, fact or fiction, and the two with me here, Paddy and Ikra, have to guess whether or not it's fact or fiction, the statement that I make. And they both get to make it, but whoever guesses
I'm currently
first
staring
and gets
Paddy
it
down.
right.
Oh, I wasn't even looking at you. Sorry.
To nothing.
Dun, dun, dun.
Are you ready? Oh my word.
Sorry, that was very intense. I've always wanted to do that into a microphone. That's why I did
Okay.
it. So, first question. South of the equator, toilets and tornadoes spin the other way to the north.
I'm going to say that's fact.
I'm gonna say it's fiction.
Okay, well,
I've
you
heard
both did
that.
it at the
I've
same
heard
time.
that.
Yeah,
a
I've
lot.
heard it as absolute like rubbish though. I think like it's what people think that, but it's not.
I think that.
I mean, the
I mean,
tornadoes
it was, but-
thing. There is a difference in tornadoes, but like plug holes and things like that, I don't think they do spin the other way.
Well, we're about to find out.
We're about to find out.
So the answer is fiction.
Yes.
Due to the force of the Earth's rotation, there is a principle called the Coriolis effect.
Yeah.
It does affect the direction of surface currents in the ocean. So in the ocean, you have surface currents, and the ones in the north spin one way, and the ones in the south spin the other way. But but with toilets and not with tornadoes either, they're too small for the Coriolis effect to have an effect. I mean, there is like some tornadoes do spin more in the south one way than they do in the other way in the north, but generally it's a false statement.
Well,
There we go.
There you go. So
I'm already one up.
already
I have
one-
my
you can have
my
a
my
token,
point.
whatever thing this is, piece of paper. Here you go.
Yeah.
Okay. It rains diamonds on Jupiter and Saturn.
Yeah.
Fact. Oh,
Fact.
God, your
I'm going for fact.
confidence.
I just love the idea
that
that
sounds awesome, but I'm going to say fiction.
You can agree with him if you want, but
I don't know. That sounds pretty...
amazing.
It doesn't sound very plausible.
It
though.
sounds really painful. If I'm
Well,
honest.
it's a gaseous planet, so I think standing on it would be an issue. But
I've
anyway.
always had a question about this. Is it gas the whole way? Because I'd assume
You know
there'd be
how
some
for the
particles in
Joggle
there.
Bank podcast they have the Ask an Astronomer
There we go. We should do that. We should ask an astronomer.
every month, and they have said that if ever we want help with anything, they're more than
We're
happy
going
to
to come
help
to them.
us.
Okay, look, we'll try and get an answer on that because I want to know.
I wanna
mean-
know.
I mean, you could just Google it, but I really want to ask them.
We
and
could
get
just
their
tweet them and ask.
Yeah, exactly.
They
We'll
would
tweet them. Done.
awesome.
Back to the
Back to
raining
the
diamonds.
question. The answer, you're going to say fiction, Ikra?
Yes.
You're going to say fact?
Yeah, I am.
The answer is fact.
Yeah, knew that one.
Ikra. So 2013 data, atmospheric data, leads scientists to believe that lightning storms could turn the methane in the atmosphere into carbon. Methane.
Methane.
Could turn the methane into carbon.
What was that?
Turn the methane.
I don't even know.
I don't know what Megan's doing anymore.
Methane!
Methane. Okay. Oh my god.
I think the heat in the studio has got to Megan.
I'm
Yeah.
feeling a bit red now. Yeah, so it turns the methane in the atmosphere into carbon, which falls as hardened chunks of graphite and then sometimes diamond.
Well, that's not always diamonds.
Not always, but it does sometimes rain
wasn't the
diamonds.
question.
Okay,
So
alright.
it shows.
I'm just being a sore loser here.
Yeah.
Next question. Is there more planet? Should I do more planetary ones?
I just want you to do it
or-
in a different accent this time, please.
Oh
Oh,
my
I've got a
god.
genetic one. Red hair is going extinct.
I'm gonna say fact.
I'm also going to say fact.
I think it's on its way out.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to do it in an accent, by the way, because I'm just going to be really probably racist of some sort. Because
Probably.
I'm terrible
Okay,
at
keep it
accents
down
in
then,
general.
yeah.
Yeah.
Answer's fiction, guys.
Oh.
Thanks very much.
Although having said that, I have 2 ginger cousins.
We can dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could-
I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
I would swear, but it's before the watershed.
The redhead in the room is offended.
Little
Yeah.
bit. So here's the information on this.
I really thought
Although
that was true.
red hair is only present in less than 2% of the population, many more than 2% may be carriers because it's a recessive gene. And in many generations to come, there may be people without red hair, but it may happen.
It'll just stay level.
It'll
surely.
stay level.
It's the same
not
as
gonna
anything.
Go
It
up
doesn't.
and it's not going to go
Being
down.
recessive adon doesn't mean like it's going to disappear. It's just
No.
not shown or
Point
shown.
is, though, it's not
Yeah.
on its way
Oh,
out.
I didn't know that.
And many generations may go, though, before someone in the family is actually ginger.
I mean, genetically, we should have got that right. Like, it should be
Yeah.
obvious, but
So, no points to either of you.
no.
Mostly because I'm really insulted.
Oh well.
Apologies for that comment I made, by the way. I don't think ginger should be going
Yeah,
extinct
neither do
whatsoever.
I, personally.
Well, you would.
I mean, my
Alright.
cousins can be annoying, but I wouldn't wish extinction on them. That's a bit much.
That's quite an insult, that one. I wish extinction upon you.
To be fair, there was also some studies on Neanderthals, back to the Neanderthals, to show that they also had ginger hair.
Oh,
Maybe that's where it comes from.
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I guess we'll find out when I get my 23andMe results back.
99.9% Neanderthal.
Hello.
Neanderthal accent, that was that one.
That was my Neanderthal accent, thanks. Right, next question. This is more genetic ones. Most bananas haven't had sex for 10,000 years.
That's so bizarre. I'm gonna say fact.
Yeah, I'm going to say fact as well, because, like,
Stop choosing this.
I'm
answer
not.
as me.
I'm just allocating resources
Okay.
correctly.
you just wave your points around.
I will.
Your,
I'll wave both of my
your
points.
little pieces of card that count as points. Go on.
Yeah, it says a random act of kindness. I can't even read, but it says a random act of kindness, and I've won 2 of them, so I'm owed 2.
Not from me.
That's
and
how it
not-
works.
Doesn't make you kind.
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm owed it.
Right, so answer is... What did you both say?
We said fact.
We both said fact.
It is fact.
Yeah, it sounded too
I'm
like.
a big fan of this one.
Right, explain this to me.
So...
Wait, I get one as well.
I'm passing. Here you go.
I'm excited. This is my first point.
This is very interesting. 90% of the bananas that you eat are actually clones of each other.
Ooh.
And they're all known as, I think it's called the Cavendish banana, and it's all one clone. Oh god, so Paddy's just showing me a photo of a ginger Neanderthal and it looks really weird. Anyway, so yeah, it's all called the Cavendish banana. So basically what we've done is we've bred bananas to actually not be able to reproduce by themselves, and they have to reproduce by hand, like, breeding propagation through humans. What are you doing, Paddy? Thank
I'm
you.
just making your mic actually like
Well,
have your voice in.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And the problem with this is that bananas are actually often at risk of being wiped out because they're all genetically identical, which means they have all the same susceptibility. For example, there was a recent disease called the Panama disease, which nearly wiped out all the bananas in, I think it was in Southeast Asia, and it actually happened also in the 80s or something, and it wiped out a shit ton of bananas, and it was like, no, our bananas are going. So everyone was really upset.
It's really strange because bananas in Southeast Asia are like tiny. They're just like yay big, like as big as my hand. Just tiny baby bananas. Baby bananas.
So, last question.
Oh, and I'm not going to win now because Paddy's got more points than I do.
That's true. Is
Sad
this
times.
all or nothing, though?
It can't. That's not fair on Paddy. Like I don't want him to
I
win.
mean-
No, he's agreed to
I've
it.
actually agreed to do
Okay,
this.
all right then. Here we go.
This is all or nothing. I'm going to go for a very
So we have to go for
interesting
different
one.
answers. So this is on whichever sound comes out first.
Oh, okay.
You can't-
Okay. Men's beards grow faster when they're anticipating sex.
Oh, you got there first.
I'm going to say fact.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to say fiction now.
It is fact.
Oh, you win all the
As
points.
scientists...
Have all my points.
Thank you. Thank
so
you
this
so
is
much.
a really weird background to this. A scientist was inspired to do this study when he was growing on an island, when he was living on an island.
I mean, he probably was growing, just like
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
personal growth and emotional growth.
Well, he was
Beard
on an
growth.
island,
Beard growth.
basically.
Yeah,
And he was anticipating seeing his wife again. And he was
on the
like-
island.
Yeah, well, he was on a remote island by himself for a bit. And then he was like, I miss my wife. And he was like, but my beard's really full at the moment. And he was like, right, let's have a look at this. And he found that beards grow faster the day or so before anticipating sex.
I want to know how exactly he measured this.
Me too.
And
mean,
also,
guess
I
it's
think he was
beard
just
growth.
bored on the island.
So yeah, and it slows down after a couple of days. So yeah, there you go.
Cool.
So
Well-
the winner of that was Ikra.
Yay! But not really.
Yeah, you did. It's fair enough.
Okay, I will take my points.
Right, well, thank you for listening. That was genetics. Again, we're going to put a little vote on Facebook. If you want to get involved, we're going to put some topics up, and you choose what we do next week. So I don't know what it's going to be. But yeah, thanks for listening. This was Rocket Science, and I'm Paddy.
And I'm Ikra.
And I'm Megan.